Hey all, John here, and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be reviewing the iPhone 15 Pro Max. As you can see, I have it in the titanium color here. We're just going to be talking about my experiences with the phone, and we're going to go from there. So basically, before I got this phone, I was actually on the S23 Ultra, and the main reason I switched was it was kind of stupid, but I'm happy with it. So I was starting to feel left out because of the iMessage and the AirDrop. The Apple ecosystem, how that works. In the US, most people have iPhones. And when you don't have an iPhone, you're not able to basically send, let's say, your messages come in a lot slower. You don't get re-receipts. You can't send any media. You can't FaceTime them without using third-party apps. You can't AirDrop without sending numbers over, stuff like that. This is the basic stuff that you would be able to do on your phone. Apple kind of locks out the Android users from doing that. So that was the main thing I felt. I think the most major issue that I had when I had the S23 Ultra was that in my area where I used to live, there was a lot of tower maintenance. So basically, I wake up, the phone have no service. It wouldn't try to reconnect the service over and over. It would just say no service and then give up. It would stay hooked on Wi-Fi, but it wouldn't always authenticate with the Wi-Fi calling or however that works. So basically, I wake up, I would miss calls, text messages, and I would never get them back. And I would just wake up annoyed. I'm like, what is going on here? Why are my messages not sending? And then I have to restart the phone. I'm like, I shouldn't have to restart my phone just to have basic communication work. That the phone should be able to basically keep itself running on its own without me having to do any maintenance. Another thing that I noticed is that social media optimization is a bit garbage on the S23 Ultra. It's been a lot better on the Pixel 7 Pro when I had that. So apps like Snapchat, Instagram, anything like that that uses your camera, it's not as optimized. Yes, I think there's a camera 2 API that is a thing that's supposed to basically equal the playing field on all Android devices. But on the S23 Ultra, I would, let's say, take a photo. Let's say I'm in Chicago, take a photo, put it on Snapchat, and it would say it's sideways, and then other people would say, hey, why is the quality so low on this video? So the workaround was basically to record, let's say, take your video in your native camera app and then upload it to Snapchat. But even then, that's not 100% because then it's like, this quality is too high. We got to transcode it. We got to reduce the quality somehow. Versus on the iPhone and the Pixel, you just open up the camera, it just works. But yeah, those are the main things that I can remember that made me switch. I'm going to go over my iPhone history as well, just so I can give you guys some more context. So I've been back and forth. So my first iPhone was actually the 6S. So we're gonna go a bit on the ramble fest here, but it is what it is. First iPhone was the 6S. I actually built that from scratch. Basically bought a destroyed 6S. T-Mobile blocked the T-Mobile, used that device as use the logic board as basically the donor board to put into a new case, bought a new screen, new Taptic engine, tried to keep the original home button. Eventually that didn't come over, so I lost Touch ID. Basically used that as my first iPhone, the 6S in 16 gig. Ran out of space really quick, so I got the 7 Plus. Got I think a 32 gig device, and I think this is when Apple was having that weird Qualcomm and Intel modem thing. So some of the 7 Pluses had a Intel modem, others had a Qualcomm modem, and one was faster than the other. So around that time, from there I switched to the iPhone 10R. From there, I switched to the 12 mini. Likes the size of the device, but hated the battery life, so I went to the 13 Pro Max. Got really irritated at the battery life on the 13 Pro Max, and then went to the 14 Pro, and then from the 14 Pro went to the S23 Ultra, the Pixel 7 Pro, S23 Ultra back again, and then back onto this. So that is my phone history. I'm back now, but I'm just going to talk to you guys about the phone and we'll go from there. So I think the main thing on the 15 Pro Max is the fact that we now have this titanium casing. Honestly, I don't really care for it because I don't remember how much my 14 Pro used to weigh, and I'm coming from the S23 Ultra, which is a much bigger phone. So that doesn't matter too much to me, but the ProRes log option on this is kind of cool. So there was a time I was on a video, she wasn't just an experiment, had my A7 IV, my FX3, and the iPhone 15 Pro. Just downloaded the Blackmagic camera app and ran the log footage so I can match it with my A7 IV, and I think it matched pretty well. Obviously, you can tell that it's a smaller sensor. There's not that much depth of field, but it works. I can at least use it. I tried to stack other phones against this, like the S23 Ultra, and the S23 Ultra footage just came out super over sharpened and it was unusable in my personal opinion. But as far as those go, I think ProRes log is probably my favorite feature on this phone so far. It's amazing when it works. I'm not that big of a color grader, but it's just more so I can match the color space to what other cameras are using, and then I can deliver that. So this can basically be a C cam for me. because I already have the FX3 and the A74. Now, now we're gonna go a little bit sideways. So I'm just gonna talk about what my existing Apple ecosystem looks like. So of course I have the iPhone 15 Pro Max, I have the iPad Pro M2, 12.9 with cellular, and then I have the M1 Pro MacBook Pro behind me, and then I actually have an M3 Pro MacBook Pro 14 as well. So with this iPhone, I use iCloud, but I do not use iCloud backups. So I actually have this connected to iMazing. I've talked about this in some of my self-hosting. So basically my iPhone, whenever it gets home and my NAS is on, the MacBook communicates with the iPhone over Wi-Fi and then backs up using the MacBook straight into the NAS, so I can basically go through my backups. If this phone randomly breaks, I can still go through my text messages, stuff like that. And it backs up roughly every week. It works pretty good as long as the server is on. When the server is not on, then it's like, hey, what's going on? But overall, it's been good. Now, what do I use this iPhone for? So for me, I wouldn't call myself a heavy user. Yes, I am a power user, but I don't use my phone for anything crazy. So it's your text messages, your phone calls, maybe some FaceTime calls every once in a while, social media apps like Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, stuff like that. I recently started playing GTA on this phone in the past week, but I haven't done that any other than this last week. So, but the A17 Pro on this phone, it's amazing. I think this phone gets a little bit hot sometimes, but every phone starts to get hot when you use it, especially when you're doing more, how you would call it, intensive activities. But something that I've been fairly concerned about is the battery life. Every iPhone I've had, I think I've always had battery life concerns. This phone, I think it is currently 3 p.m. and my phone is already at 25%. So I'm gonna unlock this phone really quick, and then we're gonna go into my battery settings. All right, so this is my current battery setup. So I am at normal health. As you can see, my iPhone is at 99%. That finally dropped, and you can see my manufacture date and when I first got it. So all of that normally looks good. I am currently at 80%. I use the charging limit on this iPhone. So I just to extend the battery life somewhat, the battery health over the long term. So let's say if I do keep this on for 2 years, it should help. But time will tell. That again, batteries usually, I think when you charge them up to 100%, they just use more of a cycle, and it starts to basically strain the battery more and more. So charging to 80% kind of limits that stress to an extent. But I honestly don't like the way Apple does this battery life menu. I've got to move this over for the autofocus. Let's see, you're gonna hook. There we go. So that's what my battery chart looks like. I have some more screenshots that I'm going to talk to you guys about, but the phone works. But again, the main reason I switched to the S23 Ultra the first time after the 14 Pro is that I could not trust this phone to last when I go overseas. So I don't want to be in a situation where it's like I'm in a foreign country, my phone dies, and now I'm like, okay, what do I do here? So the S23 Ultra, when I took that overseas, lasts for 2 days, no problem. This iPhone, I would not trust the last 2 days. I wish it was better. I got the Max model for a reason, for the battery performance, and it doesn't do what I'm looking for. But again, it's an iPhone, so I guess that gives it somewhat of a pass, but not really. That's why I keep a second phone around. Now, something I've been really excited about ever since I switched to iOS 6 months ago is in the past 2 months, I've actually been using the Shortcuts app. I've started to realize that there's a lot of cool things you can do on this app compared to, let's say, what an S23 Ultra can do with modes and shortcuts or Tasker. So for me, I have a couple weird shortcuts. So I have one set up so when I get to work, I talked about this in one of my previous videos. So when I get to work, it basically automatically turns on my VPN, enables silent mode. It only turns on the VPN if I'm on company Wi-Fi. If I'm just on LTE, it leaves it off. I have it set up so like whenever I'm visiting a certain person I know, it actually texts her that I'm outside without me touching my phone. So that's kind of cool to have. Whenever I get to my house, it opens up my parking app so I can open up the garage. I have another shortcut set up to where when I go to church, it basically asks me, hey, what level did you park on? So you don't have to take a photo and clog up your camera roll. And it reminds me as I'm going back to the parking garage again. I think I have some other shortcuts set up to let's say, for example, a storage unit. Whenever I approach the storage unit, the phone will ask, hey, are you at this place? Do you want your storage code? And I just tap yes, and it gives me the storage code without me having to dive through my messages or my my screenshots to find it. So there's stuff like that on iOS I really do love. I really like the fact that Apple is very consistent with their services or the technologies they create. So stuff like AirDrop has been around since iOS 7, I think, iOS 7. And it still exists today. On the Android side, I don't think there's anything that's been that consistent because of how Google kind of just creates a new technology or a new piece of software and drops it. And then you have things like accessories. Like in my GTI, I have an MDI port. Yes, the port has changed, but if I can get an adapter, that port will still be able to communicate with my iPhone today. It's like Apple makes, let's say Apple introduces, let's say an iPhone or a new version of iOS or a new anything that any type of technology they create is around for the long term. That's what I'm trying to say. I really do like that, and I feel like that makes them more reliable of a company to buy from. Yes, they have a lot of issues when it comes to, let's say, repairability and stuff like that, but as far as the day-to-day, you can tell anyone to buy an iPhone and it'll just work, versus, let's say, an Android device. You can't tell someone to just buy an S23 Ultra because they're like, why is the phone this big? Why does it have so many features? The iPhone, all iPhones are basically the same, and that is the beauty in them. But yeah, that basically concludes this review. I hope this video is actually a lot shorter compared to the other phone reviews I've done. And I'm going to be reviewing this phone against the S23 Ultra next. I know the S24 Ultra is out now, but let's be honest, the S23 Ultra and the S24 Ultra are not that different, especially with the One UI 6.1 update. So stay tuned for that video, and I hope to see you in the next video.